Hi, and welcome to the first episode of Fortitude with your host, Scott. I want to talk a little bit about something that has been going on for a couple of years now. It is an injury that is called rhabdomyolysis. Now, this has really impacted my life over the last couple of years and will essentially affect it for the rest of my life. So, I want to talk a bit about it and then go into a full discussion about it as well. So, in short, rhabdomyolysis is muscle breakdown. Now, muscle breakdown is when you're essentially, as it says, like your muscles break down from an intense crushing injury, among other sort of triggering symptoms. But it's where the electrolytes from inside your blood, from inside your muscles, will leak into the bloodstream and run through your whole body, and it can cause a wide range of problems. It can be fatal, it can be serious, it can permanently injure you for the rest of your life. So, I want to talk about what happened to me and how I dealt with it over the last couple of years and how I'm still dealing with it. So, in it goes back to basically my 25th birthday. So, it's gone back 3 years now, and I was working out one day outside in the sun, and basically I injured myself, not sure on what cause was. I think it's just a build up of there was I had lack of water, being out in the heat, doing something like that I was somewhat new to. I did go out surfing later that day as well. So it was my birthday, so I was doing quite a few activities throughout the day, and I didn't prioritize the workout I had was quite intense. And it wasn't until the next day I was developing quite sore pain in my legs. And it was starting to get quite unbearable. So the next day, I went to see a GP and told him my symptoms. At that point, I couldn't really move my legs. I wanted to sit down in the chair in the doctor's clinic, and I sort of fell into the chair because my knees weren't bending, so my legs sort of sprung up, a bit like a toy soldier, um, or Barbie doll, whichever one you prefer. And he sort of shrugged it off as, "Oh, it's just sore muscles." I was quite young at the time. I didn't really think anything of it. I thought, oh, fuck, maybe this is some sore muscles that I haven't had before. I went home, went back to work, all that kind of stuff. It was quite painful at work. Um, but I got through. I was working in a very intense labor company as well. I was working at a like a stone mill making bricks and stuff. So quite heavy labor. Um, and it wasn't until I think it was a Thursday night, and given this incident happened on like the Saturday Sunday the week before, so it's been about 5 6 days, and I went to the toilet and I pissed. Like the color was like black, like it was fucking dark. But I felt so fatigued that I didn't really care. Like I sort of knew it was alarming. I knew something was definitely wrong, but I just felt so out of it that I didn't really care. I just wanted to go to sleep because I felt so tired. Um, Now, I should have raised the alarm then and there because it was concerning to me, but at the same time, I was just sort of like I was almost half asleep that I just didn't care what was going on. Like I just wanted to go to sleep. So I hopped into bed, basically just, lights out, went to sleep. And it wasn't until I woke up at about, not say midnight because I can't exactly remember what time, with the worst heart pain, and I was in like astronomical amounts of pain. And weirdly enough, the cat, the cat jumped off the bed and ran down to my partner at the time and was, running around being all crazy. And she was like, "What the fuck's going on?" So she got up and followed him, and he ran down a passage, and he ran into the bedroom, and she's seen me, and she's like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "No, I'm not. Can you please call an ambulance?" So she called an ambulance, and they came quite quickly, actually. And they put me in the back of the ambulance, took me off the hospital. They were doing tests in the ambulance. Um, they gave me something to sort of numb the pain, but it didn't really numb it at all. And they were putting like heart monitor stuff on me and all that. So we got to the hospital and straight in. And as at that point, I was like near, well, actually not near because I was completely bawling my eyes out. Like I was in the worst fucking pain I have ever been in my life. Like it was shocking. I was just like I wanted to die in that moment. It was that fucking painful. So they, I remember they took blood and took off some tests, but while I was still just in complete amounts of pain, they actually injected me with fentanyl and like oxycontin or oxycodone or something. I didn't actually get told this at the time. I only asked this the next day, but it put me out completely because I was like tears rolling down my face. I was full crying. I was just like like I was uncontrollable moving around in the bed like aggressively because I was just in so much pain. So when I woke up after hours later, the pain had started going down because of the injections I was given, and they put me in a cardiac ward because they discovered that my heart was shutting down. My kidneys were starting to shut down as well because of this injury called rhabdomyolysis. Now, like early in the video, rhabdomyolysis is the muscle breakdown where it leaks all the electrolytes into the bloodstream. Now, they they test this by they check your blood for your CK levels, which is creatine kinase levels, which is a marker that identifies the myoglobin that's throughout the bloodstream. Now, for an average adult male, an amount in the bloodstream, like a marker, is roughly between 10 and 170 units per liter. Now, over 1,000 is considered rhabdomyolysis. Over 5,000 is considered serious and is hospital worthy. I had between 40 and 50,000 units per liter in my bloodstream. And it was running through my body, basically just poisoning me from the inside. And it was starting to shut down my heart, my kidneys, and it could have killed me. It could have permanent disability. I could have been dead. So I spent days in hospitals. Like I was on drips back to back. I couldn't walk. Um, I spent a couple nights in the cardiac ward, and that was a very surreal moment because it was sort of like I was talking to some people in the cardiac ward, and this elderly couple looked at me, and they were like, "How old are you?" And I was like, "Just turned 25." And their hearts broke. They were like, "You are too young to be in this ward." Um, so that really like got to me. So I was quite upset about all that because it was really starting to sink in that this really could have killed me. And it was a couple of days later they ended up moving me to another ward because they were quite happy with what the heart was doing. In this time I was like back and forth into like rooms to get tested on this and tested on that, and they were running scans, and I was getting X-rays and MRIs and this and that and fucking everything. Now I got put into another ward and I was there for another couple of days. Now in this time I did not shower. Like it was disgusting, but I just did not want to shower because I had so many hoses and cords and everything all hooked up to me. Not only could I just not walk properly as well, like it was really painful to walk. I almost couldn't walk. So and I was just so depressed from how much like cords and hoses and stuff I had. Like it was just so uncomfortable. I just laid there and basically my own filth. Um, but it wasn't until I got discharged, the after back-to-back drips like for days. It was even when one would run out at like 3 in the morning, they'd just come in straight away and change it. Like they would just one after the other. I did have two on the go at once as well early on, so I had one in each arm. And after a little while, they ended up just running on one, which was quite good because then I could freely use my other hand to be on my phone and stuff like that, and just sort of keep myself occupied. Now, when I got discharged, the CK levels were down quite low. They discharged me at about 2,000, so still rhabdo, but the amounts they were quite happy with it once they'd flushed all the myoglobin out the bloodstream. So went back home, had another couple of days off work. I I went back to work quite soon actually, because I was in a position where I was a full-time casual, so I had to work. I didn't get paid, and I didn't really try any of the Centrelink stuff. I was quite fortunate with some family that helped me out with finances. So a couple of days later, after getting out of hospital, went back to work. The workplace knew about everything. I was very thankful that a mate at the time who was quite close to me, he worked there as well. So he told the boss everything that was going on, basically saying, yes, he is in hospital, like this is what he has, and or like he was sort of giving him the rundown early on as well, which was quite good. So when I went back to work, I was treated like with like oven mitts. Like I was precious cargo sort of thing. They were very accommodating for me, which was for like a meal, which is pretty good. But I was on heart medication for like 8 to 9 months after getting out of hospital, and it was regular checkups, and I basically had to teach myself how to walk again. I went to the gym. It was about 4 weeks after getting out of hospital, so I never got like the okay to go back to the gym, but I wanted to go because it was more so the mindset that I wanted to go back and just try to be in the gym. Now, I I wasn't stupid. I knew what I could and couldn't do, so I hopped on the treadmill with the speed of now. If everyone has been on the treadmill, they know how like some of the speeds work. I was on 0.3 kilometers an hour. Like I was on real slow, like 300 meters an hour, and I was so wobbly. I thought I was gonna fall over. Like I was holding onto the side rails, and I was like wobbly and all that. I had no feeling in my legs. They were just like just bags of jelly, really. So that sort of got to me quite a bit because in that moment I started to realize, is this permanent? Like, can I ever properly walk again? And it played on my mind for a while. I did get a PT, and I talked to her about she knew quite a lot of things because she was very good friends with my partner at the time. So she was very up to date with what was going on. Um, and we worked together with a lot of things. I could still do upper body, that was fine. Nothing was triggering like the spike in the CK levels. It was only if I did lower body, but we still tried lower body every now and then just to see where it was improving, where it wasn't. There was a like relapse about 6 weeks after getting out of hospital, which I knew was going to happen because I had a feeling that it wasn't going to be like all sunshine and daisies after getting out of hospital. So that it elevated a little bit, and I went back to the hospital just to sort of check. They said that the CKs were at about 6,000 units per liter. So they asked me if they sort of gave me the option, say, it will go down if you go home and just sort of like hydrate a lot and relax and like just don't move for a couple of days sort of thing, and you should be able to get this back down without needing hospital. So I did that because I didn't want to be in hospital again, and it wasn't until a couple weeks later I went back to the gym, and it was starting to feel quite good. Like the legs were I was starting to come good again, and it wasn't until I went back to the heart specialist in about July 2021. I went back to the cardiologist, and the heart stuff got ticked off, which was very good, and I didn't need to take medication anymore. They were happy with the improvement. Now, about the heart stuff, they found out that it was myopericarditis. Now, myocarditis is when part of the inside of the heart is inflamed, and pericarditis is when the envelope sac around the heart is inflamed. I had a combination of the both. It was quite painful, and it was just all constant as well. And working at a mill during winter, it was like my heart was like was quite painful with the really cold night air. I was on a lot of blood thinners as well. I was on, I think it was like 15 or 20 aspirin a day or something. It was just like these intense blood thinners throughout the day, and I was hoping I didn't get like a cut or anything. It would have just like bled like water. So going on from there, got my heart stuff all ticked off. The kidneys were all fine too. So it was just down to the muscles in the legs, the quadriceps. Now, it wasn't until, so we fast forward to November 2021. So at this point, it is 9 months after the injury, or 8 months, sorry. And I had an attack of PTSD, and that was quite confronting. I got triggered by ambulance lights. Now, I seen these ambulance lights when I was out on Hindley Street, and something about the dark, like the dark night with the blue and red flashing up close, and all the high vis of the ambulance. It triggered something in me, and it sent me on a deep dark path for quite a while. And it was really sort of flashing in and out after it got triggered, but it started to become quite regular. Now, the PTSD got quite intense in about February, March 2022, so 1 year after the incident, where I got triggered when I was out in High Street again, and it was the same sort of thing. It was an ambulance lights late at night, and it fucked me up like mentally. And I went down to, I don't remember how I got there, but I went down to the River Torrens. And keep in mind, this is very, very confronting. And I effectively wanted to drown myself to get away from the nightmares that I was experiencing. Like, it was very, very intense. And there was actually a stranger. Like, I met a complete stranger down there. I was also intoxicated as well, so I wasn't like making much like of a conversation to the old mate to be in the same mind on top of having PTSD triggered. But there was this gentle stranger who sat with me at a park bench and comforted me a lot. And he actually stopped me from jumping into the river and trying to end myself, because just trying to get away from these nightmares, like that was literally the only thing. I was just trying to get away from the nightmares that I was experiencing. So it wasn't until somehow, whether I gave my phone to the stranger sitting next to me, or he asked who he could call or something, or if, my partner and my friends, they found me on Snap Maps or something, if I opened it just as I was the torrents or something. But they came down, and I remember they got told that they thanked this gentleman for sitting with me and looking after me. He was just a random person just walking along the torrents at night time. And my partner at the time and our two good friends, they comforted me really well that night. And I was shivering, I was like shaking, I was crying. I was just, every time I closed my eyes, it was just like flashback after flashback. And it was just like, I just started feeling all the pain again, like from head to toe. And it was, I ended up jumping off the park bench, and I jumped onto the ground, and just to in that moment I wanted to get the nightmares out of my head. And stupidly enough, like, I didn't know I was doing this at the time, but I repeatedly started smashing my head into the concrete just to get the nightmares out of my head. Like, it was that bad that I resulted in just smashing my head into the ground. And I think I did end up getting a concussion out of it. And one of our friends that were with us that night, he jumped down on the ground with me and pulled me to the grass, and to try and just soften the ground I was trying to force my head into, because like at the end of the day they tried their best to stop, but because of what I was experiencing, I did not want it to stop. So I just kept trying to like hit my head against the ground to get the nightmares out. And he ended up like putting his hands underneath my forehead, and he just let my head just smash his hands into the ground just to protect me. And they called an ambulance, and they were saying about a concussion because I was basically just unresponsive on the ground. And I'm pretty sure I knocked myself out. This is only what I'm getting told the next day, but I'm pretty sure I knocked myself out. And they called an ambulance, but because of all the ambulance ramping, they wasn't going to get there in time. So I ended up waking up after a little bit, and I was a bit more normal. Like, I wasn't screaming about nightmares. I wasn't screaming about flashbacks. I was sort of just back to what it was before I got triggered. So we all got into an Uber and went home. And our friend stayed over that night too to look after me, as well as my partner at the time. She was also looking after me as well. And the next day, I woke up and obviously I had a sore head, and I didn't I didn't have any flashbacks the next day, and it sort of simmered down. I sort of let it pass for a while, and it didn't come back. I tried to just sort of think, oh, this was just like a one-off sort of thing. Like, this wasn't going to happen again. And a couple months later, I had another trigger of my injury, and wasn't as high elevation. The I didn't get treated with I didn't get the bloods taken for the CK because I didn't feel like it was quite like a lot. So it was only just would have been a couple hundred, maybe less than 1,000 in the CK, just from guessing, because of what I've had to sort of feel over the years. I can roughly sort of start judging as to what levels it is at. And it was only because the cat ran across my legs, and the pain was just real fuck. Oh, what the hell? um, but I sort of let that slide, and just did what I can to let it recover. And in this meantime of all this injury stuff, I got really good upper body workouts because I couldn't utilize my lower body as much, or really at all. So I got really good at upper body calisthenics and like gymnastic rings and stuff like that. So I found a way around the injuries as best as I could. So anyway, I'm getting a bit sidetracked here. So it got to about, I think it was October. I seen a psychologist because I had a slight arousal of all the PTSD started coming back, and it wasn't as intense as back in March, February 2022, but it was starting to seep up, and it was like starting to get quite regular. And whenever I just seen ambulances, I just started crying. And it was just like I would be just driving along, just seeing ambulance pass, and I just start like tears would just start rolling down my face. And it got to a point where I really started to know that it was just subconsciously just coming out. And if it got to a point where I heard an ambulance in the background, I'd like stop, like cover my eyes, and I'd just not look and not hear it, sort of thing, until it went past, and try to avoid the triggers. But I really started to think that I couldn't avoid them, so I had to go see a psychologist about it. And had a wonderful psychologist. She was top of her game, really talked about it with me. And I also started antidepressants on my own accord because I just say to a GP about them and they just give you them. So I just wanted to try it because I needed something just to help me, to assist me get along. And there was no shame in that. Very early on, as I went to start taking them, I was quite ashamed of it because I thought I'm relying on an external source to help me in this situation, and I felt quite weak about it. But that sort of passed, and I sort of got to the realization that it is okay to ask for help and have somebody help you as well. So I sort of I used the antidepressants whilst talking to a psychologist because I didn't want to just rely on medication in this situation. I wanted to get to the bottom of it. So whilst on medication, I was talking to a psychologist, a very, very good clinical psychologist in Adelaide. And if anyone wants her name, please reach out to me, and will give her, I will give you her name. And anyway, so talking with her for months on end, but it wasn't until, so I'm just trying to remember some of the timelines here because it's quite a long time. So, um, but anyway, so November 2022 was the last relapse of my injury. Now, in that time, I thought it was sort of over because it had been about 12 months, roughly, since anything serious happened. So I thought this was, starting to go off, and it was just the PTSD that now was lingering. So I was running at the gym on the treadmill, and the next day I just woke up and I was like, what the fuck? Like my legs were so weak. There was no pain, which is quite weird, but I had no feeling. It was just they were just weak. Um, so I went to work. They sent me to the hospital because I was walking so slowly, and if I walked at any speed, I would have fallen over. So I went to the Royal Adelaide Hospital and basically went in with a full booklet in my head about what was, everything that was sort of on file and what's happened and all this. So they took it quite seriously. They took me out the back, ran blood straight away. The CK levels were only at about 350, so only in the triple digits, not in the 4 or 5 digits, but still above 170. So I got told, just go home, rest, and he said, whatever you can do to just make this as easy as you can for yourself, please do it. So I decided to get a walking stick because I felt if I didn't have something just to help stabilize me, I would have fallen over. Like I felt so weak, and it was almost like I'd run a marathon, but I hadn't. So I was on a walking stick for I think it was about a week and a half because it started to sort of get quite good again, where I could just I could use my own legs at the time. But I went to Mount Gambier that weekend, and I was actually out at the pubs on my walking stick. And this is the thing about small town mentality as well, is I seen someone. Now I know who they are, but I'm never going to say the name because this is not about that. But they pointed and laughed at me for being on a walking stick. So that kind of was a kick in the guts, but at the end of the day, you know, they might have thought it was a gimmick. They might have thought that they had no idea what was going on because I don't have his personal social media or anything. So it is what it is. But it did hurt a little bit because I thought, fuck, is this like permanent? Like, am I ever going to be properly able to walk again? So, a week or two later, I was off the walking stick, which was good. Um, I had to get a return to work letter for this workplace. Now, I'm never going to disclose this workplace because I am not about disclosing things and running names to the dirt, whether that be people or businesses or anything. But This workplace fired me for having PTSD because the doctors said, yes, his blood levels are fine. They gave me another test, and it was within the 10 to 170 units per liter. And they also said he's on antidepressants because for PTSD, and it's well managed and well controlled. This workplace didn't like that because I was fired the next day. Well, let's just say not fired because they know that they can get in trouble for that. It was you are no longer required. They have run out of work, which was bullshit. I knew it was bullshit because they had jobs advertised. So anyway, I was unemployed for a couple weeks. I in that time I had a job interview and got that, and it's amazing business, very welcoming. End up making more money, more stability, full time. So it's a win in every single avenue. And so we're going into 2023 now, and since November 2022, I've not had a relapse in the injury, whether that be heart, legs, or kidneys. But the PTSD still lingered for a little while going into 2023, and I was still seeing a psychologist for a couple of months still, and I think I stopped seeing her in about August, so July, August 2023. Um, I started couldn't really afford it because it was about $300 a session, and I just wasn't able to keep affording that. But was utilizing the tools that I was getting taught at the sessions, and I came to the realization that one of the best things that I've done for this, especially the PTSD, was just talking about it. There'll be times where I even just recorded myself, a bit like I'm doing for this video, but I just record myself and basically having a podcast with myself or having a conversation with myself and just talking about it and looking at myself in the camera, and it felt like I was just talking to someone. And that was a huge thing that just helped me get over it. Well, not so much get over it, but just helped me sort of manage it and feel heard. I felt very safe talking to myself about it. I felt safe talking to my partner. I felt safe talking to the psychologist, but there's something about talking to yourself as well. It's just there's no judgment at all. You feel very safe with yourself. And I stopped taking the antidepressants because I felt like I didn't need them anymore and I could manage everything on my own. And it come through. I haven't. I think when was it? The last PTSD flashback I had was probably around July, August last year, and I haven't had one since, which is fantastic. But I'm also aware that PTSD never goes away. Like it can never fully go away. It can be dormant completely, but it is never like all finished sort of thing because 80 years from now I could get a trigger. Well, sorry, 70 because I was be 108. So 70 years from now I could it could trigger and I could just have another flashback again, and or it could happen in, you know, 20 minutes. It could happen in 20 hours, 20 days, 20 months, 20 years. Like it, I'm just aware that it's never fully gone and it's always going to be around the corner. But understanding that it is a part of life, and although it was very scary and it's very hard to go through, I surround myself with very supportive people and talk about it where I can because the worst is keeping it inside and letting it just eat me up and, you know, of a night time, throughout the day, in my dreams. So I've also wanted to start a clothing company and base the story behind the clothing brand as Atlas, the Greek Titan. Now, I resonate with this because Atlas was cursed to hold the weight of the heavens on his shoulders, and just be sort of just against all odds hold it up, like hold the heavens above his head. And that's what I feel like I've sort of had to do with PTSD. I've just had this great burden on my shoulders that I've just had to sort of just keep a hold of and keep it above my head and not let it crush me. And I feel that that's what everyone sort of goes through with mental health issues. It's just this constant burden that just feel like it's crushing you, and you're just holding it against, like, it's your strength against being crushed under whatever is on top of you. And I want to raise awareness for mental health and other aspects of all that, like PTSD and depression, anxiety, and bipolar, and just every sort of form of mental health or mental injury that we all go through. And I want to donate some of the profits of selling the items to mental health awareness and Beyond Blue and stuff like that, for those that are going through a very hard time and feel like that they're just getting crushed under something. And I'm still in the works of starting a clothing company as well, but if you keep up to date, I will. Um, I'm creating an Instagram account and a website and getting some articles of clothing made. And each item sold, a percentage of the sale will be going towards mental health. So going into 2024, I feel very confident about myself, what I've had to endure over the past, and going forward, that although I am not fully recovered, because I may never fully be recovered as well, because this could always come back. And it's been about, how many months is it now? 12, about 15 months since the last rhabdomyolysis injury. Although that was only very minor, but it was still like a muscle breakdown, and it started releasing the myoglobin into the bloodstream. I just, I know that it can always come back, but I'm always aware about it and just know what I can and can't do. And each time I go to the gym and I train lower body, like, I really enjoy lower body, but I'm just aware that if it spikes, I might go in this circle again of just being injured, getting PTSD flashbacks, and just a vicious cycle. But with supportive people, I can manage that, and just being very confident in myself of everything around me. But I also had a follow-up appointment. So this is where I was going with that a little bit then. I sort of started to forget. But I had a follow-up appointment in February this year. So February 2024, I seen a specialist that deals with, it's a rheumatologist. So they were doing all the investigation about the injury, and it took 3 years to get into, which was unbelievable. But they they're pretty confident that it may not come back again, just because of how long it's been since the last attack. But they aren't certain. And they're going to be putting me into a metabolic myopathy test, where I don't know too much about that, because I'm not going to be doing a lot of reading on it in case I start to, sort of tell myself that I've got it if I don't, which isn't a very healthy thing to do. So I'm just I did a little bit of research, but not too much, just to sort of know what roughly it is. But it's a cell disease where your body is taking energy from things where it shouldn't. So from what I've read, it seems like it's taking the energy from the muscle and using it as fuel, which isn't good. So, but until then, I've got to wait for an appointment. They did say it was also going to be quite a while to get into, which isn't a surprise. So hopefully it's not 3 years, but it's just, playing all by ear by now. But anyway, this is the first episode of Fortitude, and I really appreciate you all for listening. And I would like to have guests on at some stage and talk about, injuries and other things we've all overcome in the past, and what has sort of shaped our futures, and things we've all had to sort of deal with in our own personal lives that no one's aware of, and just help everyone get heard. So thank you for tuning in, and I will hopefully get another episode up very shortly. Thank you.